Welcome to Lynn Cullen Live, talk radio without the static. Email your questions and comments to lynn at pghcitypaper.com. And now your host, Lynn Cullen.
Hey, welcome to yet another whatever. Who knows what this will be. It's called Lynn Cullen Live, and just to set us in time, it is September 17th in the year, 2020. Speaking of years, the Jewish New Year is coming up, so I get to get out of this year sooner than some of you. The Jewish New Year is starts Friday at sundown. And we Jews are on, I'm not even sure. Is it 5781? Hell with 2020. That was 300 years ago. Plus. Excuse me. Okay. Anyway, Happy New Year. Lashana Tova to any Jews in the audience. Let's hope it's better than the last. I'm going to be coughing, I can tell. Remember when a cough was just a cough? Man, those were the good old days. It's a good thing you're not here, right? You don't have to run for cover. I read somewhere today that when the Arabs and Israelis were at the White House doing their signing the other day, excuse me, Pompeo, our illustrious Secretary of State, was seen without a mask, of course. Nobody was masked. And hacking, standing near one of the Israeli folks. And the Israelis apparently were so freaked out by the lack of any masks or being put so close together that when they left D.C. and flew back to Tel Aviv, I guess they insisted that most of the people there quarantine for 2 weeks. Understandably. Okay, enough. Where to start? Let me start. There's, as usual, enough frightening, horrifying things. Bill Barr especially scaring me today, but the day is still young, and I'm sorry about this cough. I think it might settle down in a sec. I hope. I'm all stuffed up, too. I'm as good as a goner, right? Heck, let's go to your emails. I've got some emails here, some I think left from yesterday, but I can see two are part of that Your Life in 6 Words challenge. I still can't get the so-called Hemingway 6-word story out of my head that prompted this kind of thing. That story, if you weren't listening yesterday, was, in 6 words, for sale, baby shoes are worn. Okay. Kurt writes, 6 words. Born, got some things dry cleaned. Then he admits he's ripping off comedian Jackie Mason, who he said originally said something like, "What's all this stuff about the meaning of life? Life is simple. You're born, you take a few things to the cleaners, then you die." Okay. before and got some things dry cleaned. Oh, and then he says, and here are some serious ones. Oh, I like this. He managed to get 3 separate sentences in the 6-word challenge. Here it is. Been there, done that. Now what? That's good, Kurt. And then here's another. Accumulated possessions. Anything you can use? Nice. Those are good. Those are good. You didn't have to rip off Jackie Mason. I interviewed him once. He was a jerk, but he came across as a jerk. I mean, that was his shtick, so maybe he was just in full shtick. I don't know. And Allison has hers, and it is this. Hold on. Find beauty amidst ugliness. Well, how nice. How nice. Hold on. Hold on. Find beauty amidst ugliness. Aw, guys, you're good. You're very, 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 very good. I never came up with one. I always thought that the hardest thing to be would be a really good headline writer. By virtue of the fact that they've got this kind of a challenge constantly, sum up the gist of a story in, a few words, and not only just a few words, but words that will draw people to want to know more, and that will accurately reflect what the story is. That's, to me, it's just an extraordinary skill to be able to do that well. And God knows we've all seen a lot of lousy headlines, but anyway, what else I got here? Let me go. I'm avoiding some things because there's some things here that are really upsetting to me. Let me go to Stanley Crouch. He's dead. 74 years old. This is a guy who I never got. I was aware of him. I never read much of what he wrote, and he wrote prodigiously. He intimidated me. And I was just sort of afraid of him. I was afraid of his intellect. I was afraid of him because he was not easily categorized. So you didn't know. With so many people, you sort of know where they are, and because most of us tend to stay in pretty defined places. And Stanley Crouch always struck me as, I guess the word is iconoclastic, right? And I didn't know enough about him to really have much of an opinion. My reaction to him was just that. It was this sort of visceral, I'm scared. I was scared of him. I was scared of his clearly prodigious brain, and because I wasn't sure where he was coming from exactly, and never made any major effort to find out, I just ran. So when I heard he had died yesterday, I was particularly interested, now that he couldn't scare me anymore, to read the obituary and to get a better sense of who was this guy who I didn't know in any way, and who my reaction to was this unsettled feeling of yow and retreat. So I will share with you some of what I gleaned from this obituary. Speaking of headlines, this is the headline: Stanley Crouch, 74, critic who saw American democracy in jazz, is dead. Now, I did know that he was, along with Wynton Marsalis, the founder of jazz at Lincoln Center in New York, which has become, it is the showcase for jazz in America. And I think everybody agrees that jazz is the most American of all music genres. Anyway, so there's that musical aspect to Stanley Crouch. But he's mostly a writer. He was a syndicated columnist for the New York Daily News for a long time. He also wrote for the Village Voice. He was a professor, even though he never had a college degree himself. He was an author, an essayist. He won one of those MacArthur Genius Awards. He was something. So here's some of what I highlighted from the obituary. He called himself a radical pragmatist, which I like the sound of, frankly, because I don't know if I'd call myself a radical, but I know I am a pragmatist. A radical pragmatist, and he defined that this way: I affirm whatever I think has the best chance of working and of being both inspirational and unsentimental, of reasoning across the categories of false division and beyond the decoy of race. Now there, you see it right there. He is provocative, and he is saying, he's taking, there are people who would like wince at a few things he's saying there. First of all, saying something like the decoy of race and categories of false division. This makes him obviously suspect to anyone who is and who has swallowed any particular catechism, who has swallowed any particular narrative, and any deviation from that narrative makes you an outlier, an enemy, the other, or whatever. And I'm with him on that. And there's so much of that now, on the right, on the left, everywhere. So he didn't like any of that. So I'll just go on. I'm going to read the next paragraph. Espousing that pragmatism, he found ready adversaries among fellow Black Americans, whom he criticized as defining themselves in racial terms and, in racial terms, and as reducing the broader Black experience to one of victimization. Okay, so he criticized a lot of Black intellectuals as defining themselves purely in racial terms and reducing the broader Black experience to one of victimization. He vilified gangster rap as birth of a nation with a backbeat. That's a good line. He didn't like Reverend Al Sharpton, called him a buffoon. He called Louis Farrakhan insane. He said of Toni Morrison that she was as American as P.T. Barnum. And Alex Haley, the author of Roots, he called opportunistic. Okay. So you can see this is a guy who, you understand why I was always sort of thinking, he took no prisoners. He stood with no orthodoxies, I guess. He venerated James Baldwin, Ralph Ellison, and Albert Murray, who he said saw beyond the conventions of race and ideology while viewing the contributions of black people as integral to the American experience. He hated the expression African American, saying, I use Negro, Black American, or Afro-American, and as to why, you'd have to go, I'm sure he has reason. He pretty much educated himself a lot. He just devoured books as a kid. He was born in South Central L.A. to a father who was a heroin addict, who was in jail when he was born, and who he never even met until he was 12 years old. And his mother was a housemaid, who he credits with everything. He said his mother was instrumental. Isn't this often the case? Yeah. Black women. His mother, he said, was instrumental in his development as a writer, teaching him the alphabet and spelling before he ever got to school, introducing him to jazz. And what else can I tell you? Because this goes on and on and on and on and on. As I said, he never graduated from college, but at the age of 22, he was already a professor at one. Wow. He got himself to New York in 1975, writing for the Village Voice. He was out of the Village Voice. The Village Voice was 1980. He lasted 8 years there and was fired after he got into a fist fight with another writer on the paper. I'll give you two more things. He refused. His writings on race ran counter to the grain of liberal orthodoxies. He refused to accept the notion that victimization and degradation are the defining motifs of African American history. And the last thing I'll leave you with is his words. In an interview with the New York Times in 1990, he said that too many discussions on race were, quote, simple-minded and overly influenced by the ideas of determinism. If you're poor, you're going to act a certain way. A self-perpetuating path. And he credited his public school teachers in L.A. of keeping him from that path. And these, again, his words. These people were on a mission, talking about the teachers. They had a perfect philosophy. You will learn this. If you came in there and said, I'm from a dysfunctional family in a single-parent household, they would say, boy, I'm going to ask you again, what is 8 times 8? When I was coming up, he said, there were no excuses except your house burned down and there was a murder in the family. 8 times 8 was going to be 64, whether your family was dysfunctional or not. It's something you needed to know. Stanley Crouch. 74. I'm sorry, I was afraid of him. Ellen has sent 6 words. She says it is apropos to her husband. No commuting. Best vegetable garden ever. Ha ha. Oh, how nice. Ha ha. I love it. Wonderful. Thank you. Thank you. We have a caller, so let's go to the phones. Hello.
Hello, Lynn.
Hello.
Early Happy New Year.
Thank you.
And I wanted to say, I just forgot what I wanted to say.
Ha ha. Ha ha. Boy, do I know that feeling.
Well, one thing I wanted to say is, you know, you got a lot of people out there listening, Lynn, that sit on their butts and they never call in.
You're going away again. Hey. I can't hear you.
Goodbye.
I can't hear you. So it doesn't matter what you were going to say, or you can't remember to say, because I can't hear you. It always starts out fine, and then you disappear. I'm just saying. He left. Who can blame him? Bree is saying that he can identify with Stanley Crouch's radical pragmatist moniker. He says, Bree says, I like to refer to myself as an independent, pragmatic, moderate centrist. Common sense and the golden rule go a long way. I hear you. That's good. Sure, I hear you. Well, you know, that golden rule, do unto others, is, who was it? Was it Hillel, who, when asked to describe sum up your religion, standing on one foot? Do I have that right, or am I think so. Can you stand on one foot and tell me what your religion is? And he pretty much said to do unto others as you would have them do unto you. I think I got that right. And really, if you think about it, unless you're a masochist, that really would work as a summation of a good religion. Treat others like you would treat yourself. And I'm just saying that if you care about yourself. If you don't care about yourself, that doesn't work. It does not work. Oh, Lord. Help me. Everything else is... Excuse me while I mutter to myself, okay? Because as I look, I'm not seeing anything great. I mean, that's not heavy. I think I've got a caller. Hello? Hello? No one's there. All right. Stop already. Okay, then I'm just going to go to some of the more unsettling things. Sorry, guys. But I don't know if you saw this story. This was from the Washington Post, and it's about what the highest-ranking National Guard person who was at Lafayette Park before all hell broke loose there, the night that Trump had to go hold up the Bible in front of that church. And the the highest ranking DC National Guard person there was a Major Adam DeMarco. And boy, his sworn testimony to the I think the House is looking into the military's and law enforcement's use of force against those peaceful, and they were, protesters that night in D.C., where they shot tear gas, fired stun grenades, set off smoke bombs, shoved these guys with shields and batons. I mean, everything. It was hell. They had said that they had told the demonstrators to disperse, but this guy, Major DeMarco, says he was standing right there. And as the guy, supposedly told them to disperse, DeMarco said, I couldn't even hear it. And the people were way farther away than me. His job that day as the senior most National Guard officer there was to be a liaison between the Guard and the U.S. Park Police. And he says that they were actively looking just before noon on that day. The Defense Department's now follow this, this is beyond belief. The Defense Department's top military police officer sent an email to the DC National Guard, which is where DeMarco saw it, and it asked them whether they had something called a long-range acoustic device, also known as an LRAD. It's a microwave-like weapon called the active denial system, designed by the military to make people feel like their skin is burning. And it does this with invisible rays. It's called a heat ray. And it was developed to disperse large crowds, but got shelved, never used, because you fill in the blank. First of all, they were concerned that it wasn't effective. Then, somebody said, is that safe, or even, is that ethical? So it got shelved. But we come now to the Trump administration. They know this thing exists, and they want it. The Pentagon considered using it in Iraq and wouldn't. They wouldn't even use it during war. You may recall that Trump floated the idea of using this on those poor migrants trying to come across the border, and Kirstjen Nielsen, then the head of Homeland Security, said no, specifically for humanitarian concerns. But this DeMarco, in his sworn testimony, the D.C. National Guard guy, said in the email, the military police officer wrote that this device, quote, can provide our troops a capacity they currently don't have, the ability to reach out. Right, geez. Oh, dear. The whole idea of reaching out just took on an entirely different meaning in my head. This wonderful device allows them to reach out and engage potential adversaries at distances well beyond small arms range. Good God, they're talking about American citizens exercising their First Amendment right to gather and voice their opposition to the government. And they're calling them adversaries. And they want to reach out and engage them with invisible rays that will burn their skin. Actually, in the email, he goes on to excitedly say that this device can immediately compel an individual to cease threatening behavior by the application of a directed energy beam that provides a sensation of intense heat on the surface of the skin. The effect is overwhelming, causing an immediate repel response by the targeted individual. They were actually looking for that to use on those protesters. And the guy said apparently they never found one. I can't. DeMarco said that he felt compelled to come forward because he found the events at Lafayette Square deeply disturbing. His attorney said that anyone, Department of Defense, referred to American citizens exercising their First Amendment rights as potential adversaries, and even contemplated the use of an ADS on the streets of our nation's capital, calls for further investigation. DeMarco, by the way, also testified that a stash of M4 carbine assault rifles was transferred to the D.C. Armory that day, the day before, and that transfers of ammo from states such as Missouri and Tennessee arrived in subsequent days. By mid-June, about 7,000 rounds of ammunition had been transferred to the D.C. Armory. They were ready to make war on American citizens. DeMarco also told the legislators that having served in combat, he had spent time, obviously, assessing various threats, and that he did not feel threatened at any point by the protesters near the White House, nor, he said, did I assess them to be violent. Quote, from my observation, these demonstrators were engaged in the peaceful expression of their First Amendment rights, yet they were subjected to an unprovoked escalation and excessive use of force. Well, we know why. So that Donald Trump and Bill Barr could stride through the carnage they'd created over for that photo op with Trump holding a Bible he's never opened. God almighty. You know, the head spins. The head spins. Well, thank you, Josh. So I was right. I remembered that right. It is the great Talmudic sage Hillel was born in Babylonia in the 1st century first century BC. As a young man, he came to the Holy Land to study the Torah at the feet of the Yediyah. He was initially very poor, brilliant, became a face of the Yah, is often mentioned together with and a great Hillel. One famous account in the Talmud tells about a non-Jew who wanted to convert to Judaism. And this person stated that they would accept Judaism only if a rabbi would teach him the entire Torah while he, the prospective convert, stood on one foot. Oh, so he's the pupil standing on one foot. He went to this one, scholar who threw him out of the house. It's what I would have done too. And then he went to Hillel, and this gentle sage accepted the challenge and said, okay, so the guy's standing on one foot, and he says, what is hateful to you, do not do to your neighbor. That is the whole Torah. The rest is the explanation of this. Go and study it. There it is. Thank you. Now, do I have a caller? I don't think so. I can't. They're in, they're out, they're here, they're there, they're gone, they're blah, blah, blah. Wait a minute here. Excuse me. Why am I having so much? Old lady with a... I have a caller. Thank you. It took me that long to get back to where you're telling me that. Okay, let's see if the caller's there. Hello?
Hello.
Hi.
Hi. Hey,
Hi.
You were talking about education and all that before.
Yeah.
It seems like in society now, everybody's educated. They want to go to college. They want to get skills. And that's fine. I agree with that. But you always have in school a bottom rung of people who are not academic, not very good with skills, who really don't like education that well. And we've thrown those people to the side. And it was a big bulk of people that could get out of school and get a job just with a high school diploma that paid a living wage.
Yeah.
And we've talked about this many times. And the country really needs a minimum wage, a bottom rung wage. I don't know what the figure would be, and a maximum wage, because there's so many people overpaid, so many people underpaid that are maybe overeducated too. That's the problem. Until we get back to that, which I don't even know, who knows what happened, but get back to the way we were with that. I'm not putting down education or skills, because I have them, but it's you're going to have a bulk of people that just aren't good at that. So what do? Let them maybe lead a life of crime, or find another means that's not good for the country.
You leave them to lead these lives of quiet despair that results in we can see now that it ends up with people as opioid addicts, as it leads to early death is where it leads, because there is no place for them in the society, in the culture. There used to be good jobs, manufacturing jobs that people could have a solid income and a good life, and they'd be producing actual products, and they would have the dignity and respect that comes with that, and it's gone.
Exactly.
And the thing is, a lot of these white-collar jobs that people are being told, go to college, you have to do that, they're going to be gone too. They're going to be gone. I was hearing something the other day. Since the pandemic, a lot of employers are realizing, hell, we don't have to have, not only don't we have to have offices for people, we don't even have to have employees. We can have contract employees. We don't have to be giving people benefits. We can just have everybody be a freelancer. We'll hire people, because there'll be tons of skilled people. We'll hire them as needed, and they can fend for themselves. And that's what you're going to see these rapacious capitalists be doing next.
And we got a question, is the government for all the people or just certain people? And that's what we got the problem. They seem to be controlling the government, so it's not for all the people, it's just for a certain few people. And until we get back to that, if that ever happens, I feel go to Biden, but he's got a lot of obstacles and a lot of shit to take care of even before he could even get into
Oh,
it.
yeah. Well, you know,
And
I'm sick of repeating it. I'm sick of repeating it, but when Republicans have control of the government and inevitably create total destruction after 8 years of W. Bush, after 8 years or 4 years of this guy, the country always turns to the Democrats to clean up the mess, but they don't ever have an opportunity to then do anything other than that. Mess cleaning up is not the same as putting us, moving us forward. It is simply cleaning up. I'm sick of cleaning up their messes.
About Democrats when they're in, they say, well, they don't do nothing for you. What's Democrats do? I said, it's not what they do for you, it's what they don't take away from you. I said, when the Republicans get in, they take off even the little you have, they'll take that away from you. So long as I keep them in, I can at least keep what I got. I said, I'm breaking even. I said, even if they don't do one damn thing, they haven't messed with my stuff I had. I said, but people don't get that. It's always, well, I didn't get anything out of it. It's not what you got out of it. At least they didn't mess up what was already there. But the Republicans tear down, just like this guy. He's the worst, tearing down justice system, whatever it is, the health, medicine, all that, scientists. Oh, it's just the guy.
It is. I know. It's amazing.
Gotta go. Yeah.
Bye.
But
bye. Bye.
Okay. Right.
Get your optimism back. Bye.
Okay. Thank you.
Bye. God, I have another caller. Hello. Hello.
Hello?
Yes, go ahead.
Good morning, Lynn. Happy
Hi.
New Year. I love your
Thank
show.
Thank
I
you.
just have a brief comment. I watched a show last weekend. It's a special on HBO. It's called Coastal Elites. Have you watched that?
No, I've seen the trailer for it. Is it worth watching?
It is excellent. Now, it is billed as a satirical comedy, but there's moments where you really I teared up. But I don't know if you get HBO, but it's 5 characters from New York and LA coping with the pandemic and politics. And Bette Midler is the first person, and it's excellent.
Okay.
So I thought maybe you would love it, and I think your audience would as well.
Well, thank you. I always like a good tip of some way to spend my time. Good.
Well, so do I. But I really enjoyed it, and I'm going to have some girlfriends over this weekend, and we're going to watch it together. Some of them don't get HBO, but it's very, very entertaining. So I hope you get to watch it, and then you could tell us your opinion, because I value your opinion.
Well, thank you. Thanks so much. Thanks for the call.
Welcome.
Okay.
Have a good weekend.
You too.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Bye. Oh, God. Okay. I want to get to Bill Barr a little bit, just because this is the guy we got to watch. This guy is increasingly showing up on my radar as the most dangerous person in the administration by far. And the thing is, he's all in for Trump. And unlike Trump, he is smart and ruthless and knows exactly what he's doing and what he's actively trying to get this country into what I would say is a fascistic position. So some of the latest from him is on a conference call with, among others, U.S. attorneys. He suggested that they consider charging demonstrators with sedition. Sedition. Also, mulled about bringing criminal charges against the mayor of Seattle. speaking to a conservative group. When was this? Yesterday. He actually said that if Trump loses, the United States would be on the brink of destruction. He told a columnist for the Chicago Tribune that the nation would find itself, quote, irrevocably committed to the socialist path if Trump lost. He also went on to compare the governor's orders to, stay in your homes. He compared it to slavery. This is the Attorney General of the United States. I'll do the quote. This is at Hillsdale College in Michigan. And I guess this was yesterday. Putting a national lockdown, putting a national lockdown, stay-at-home orders is like house arrest. Other than slavery, this is the greatest intrusion on civil liberties in American history. Isn't that amazing? So orders meant to stem what the United Nations chief called today, by the way, the greatest threat, let me get his words properly, the greatest threat to I think global security. I can't find it, but that's what he said. In this pandemic is the pandemic. And here is the Chief Law Enforcement Officer of the United States of America suggesting that efforts by political leaders to mitigate the spread of this deadly contagion is tantamount to slavery. Asking people to stay home is tantamount to slavery. Good. Words fail me. Words fail me. God. What else I got? I got a lot of stuff. I just don't know where to go. I have, here's a quick little item from a book that's written by a Republican who worked on a number of campaigns, a guy named Stuart Stevens. And he's had a come to Jesus moment, apparently. The title of his book is It Was All a Lie. And so in this book, Stevens says that the entire apparatus of the Republican Party is built on a pack of lies. And he goes on to say, look, President Trump is not some freak product that popped out of nowhere. He is, these are his words, the logical conclusion of what the Republican Party became over the last 50 or so years. And he just lays it all out. And what he's talking about, the big lie, is about things like their championing of family values, which he says is bull. Their stoking of racism and white resentment, is just, part of the platform and always has been. They don't care about balanced budgets. They only care about balanced budgets when a Democrat is in the White House. We've seen that, obviously. And he says that the party as it exists now is willing to sacrifice the integrity of our most vital democratic institutions. Well, that's fairly obvious, and we all do see that. I wish these guys had spoken up sooner. And there's a lot of books now coming up by people saying, don't look at Trump as some kind of, strange thing that happened. He is the culmination of where the Republicans have been moving for years. And the fact that Donald Trump now has supposedly taken over the party makes sense if you know the history of the Republican Party. Now here it is. The United Nations Secretary General yesterday said that the coronavirus is the number one global security threat in the world. Yeah. We have a caller. Caller, go ahead, please. Hello?
Yes, I'm here.
Go ahead.
I was just wondering, with what you're talking about, this ties into it. Have you seen the local ads that our Attorney General, Josh Shapiro, now has one of your old adversaries against?
Yeah.
I mean, but this is just this man has been he's been one of the most effective attorneys general that we've had in this state. And she's going to get shellacked.
Yeah.
So what are they doing? Are they trying to get more Republicans to the polls? What's the purpose of this? Because I see her as being a sacrificial lamb here. There's no way he's going to lose.
No, I don't think there's any way he's going to lose either. But, this is what, she's doing this to get more statewide recognition. Maybe she'll lie in wait for another time when she can try again. Who the hell knows? Or she's quite willing to be the sacrificial lamb for whatever that gets her.
But there has to be something more than that, I would think, because I mean, say what you want about her, but she's not a dummy. And this just seems to me to be something that's just a waste of time and effort. I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong. I'm not a political expert, but I found that to be amusing. When I saw those ads come out, I said, and they're saying something about the murder rate, and it's on his. I mean, what is that all? That is just such baloney.
Right. Since Shapiro's been in, people are being murdered in the streets. Right.
And I'm going, really? I didn't realize that. I guess I should hunker down. But I just thought I'd add that.
All righty, but I think you're absolutely right in your prediction. She is going to be shellacked. Yeah.
Take care.
You too.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. A quick little thing that I saw, and here again, like this Republican now writing a book. We'll see more and more, I think, of that. A little late, if you ask me, but what the hell. I just wanted to point out a little thing I happened to see, that the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court of the state of Ohio, a woman whose name I cannot recall, was outraged yesterday because the Ohio Republican Party, and she's a Republican, okay? The Chief Justice of Ohio Supreme Court, a Republican, was so outraged by what the Ohio Republican Party said yesterday about a judge's decision in a case. The judge happens to be a Democrat, and the Ohio Republican Party came out and immediately said the judge was, doing this as a Democrat, had come to this conclusion as a Democrat and not as a jurist, and lambasted him, and she went berserk. Somewhat reminiscent of Chief Justice Roberts feeling the need early on in the Trump administration to speak out when Trump said something about Republican judges and Democratic judges, and he came out and said there is no such thing, although you're left to your own. Anyway, she said this about pushing back at her own party. This is a blatant and unfounded attack on the independence of the judiciary. See, now here's a Republican jurist who sees what the party is trying to do and at least has the honor, even though it's her own party, to call it what it is. And she went on to say, no matter how the judge ruled, to accuse them of partisanship is at the heart of what I think are efforts to weaken the judiciary. Well, she knows that's exactly what they are. And if you were to ask what are her politics, she is said to be, in the article, a conservative Republican. Henry writes, I just wanted to say that I really appreciate when your listeners call in and recommend a movie or a TV show. Maybe it's just me, but it seems most weekends I spend more time searching for a good movie than I actually do watching one. I know the feeling. There are just so many viewing choices, and most of it is pure crap. So keep the recommendations coming. Yeah. Oh, that is so true. Father Joseph said what we need in this country is vocational training as a viable option to a college degree. But, as he points out, it needs a system to support and respect it that is similar to the European model. Well, we don't do no European models here. Why do you think we are, a bunch of socialists? He sends me this about Germany's, excuse me, highly effective, God, this is my allergies, I guess, highly effective work-based vocational training system. This allows them a career, successful careers. Almost half of the German population holds one of these formal vocational qualifications. Has the lowest youth unemployment rate in the EU. Yeah. Well, it's just that we ain't gonna do what they do. Father Joseph also sent me a very interesting article that I don't have time to get into today. I had hoped to. And it's about that famous diorama at the Carnegie Museum of the lion attacking a courier on a camel. Very few of us who live here have not seen that at some point, and it is something that certainly gets your attention. It's a fascinating article about why the museum is now, they've pulled it from, I don't think you can see it right now. And they're discussing how and if to put it back and it's a a subject that is ripe for some really good back and forthing. So I'm not going to attempt to mess it up right now. I also want to just quickly get into one thing here. I keep passing it up, but I'm not going to. I'm just going to leave it with you as we head into the Jewish New Year tomorrow night. And speaking of Germany, that's what made me think of it. Probably the greatest leader in Europe right now, hands down, if not the world, is the Chancellor of Germany, Angela Merkel. And this week, she had the need to speak out against the rise in, and it's so dispiriting, in anti-Semitism in Germany. And she warned in a speech this week, quote, that it is a reality that many Jews do not feel safe in our country. And she said that anti-Semitism never disappeared, but for some time now, it's become more visible and uninhibited. Sound familiar? Yeah. Also, turns out that a hotbed of the anti-Semitism in Germany is where? It's in the police. It's in the police. A police force in Germany yesterday suspended 29 officers suspected of being, white nationalist anti-Semites by virtue of the propaganda they were disseminating amongst themselves, which was called by the Interior Minister the ugliest, most despicable Nazi immigrant baiting images. A few months ago, the German government disbanded an entire company. Now, this goes into the military, an entire company of German special forces, because it was, as they said, infested with far-right extremists. I read a long article about them, and man, they are scary. They were building up huge munitions, dumps. They had safe houses. They were ready for war. And Germany is now really struggling to come to terms with it. They raided yesterday the homes of a number of police officers in 5 different cities. Investigators have traced back to police computers information used in a string of death threats over the past 2 years that were sent to Jews, prominent Germans of immigrant roots, and to left-wing politicians. The Homeland Security expert of Germany said, "I am deeply shaken. To those who are supposed to protect and defend our values, kicking them with their feet instead is scandalous. And we have to count on adding more cases." They think they're just getting the tip of the iceberg. As for me, and there's one other thing. I just want, as a Jew, of course, I pay more attention to this stuff. So that's Germany. And now here, back in the US of A, one of the country's biggest newspapers, the Miami Herald, had to come out and apologize because it turns out their Spanish language publication had been carrying an insert in it that, among other things, said this in Spanish: "What kind of people are these Jews? They're always talking about the Holocaust." And on and on and on. And they have been apparently spreading this anti-Semitic crap for a long time. The guy, and these are Trump supporters. These are the Cuban American Trump supporters. And they're now, pushing anti-Semitism. It's popping back up in Germany and France, everywhere. And as a Jew, you believe me, you note it. And I received an email yesterday from someone. The subject matter says "friend of yours," and I looked at what it was, and it was a story about some guy who's written a book about the impeachment because he worked on it, and he's a Jew. So that is the friend of yours thing. And this guy sending me this article says this: "How can it be? This dude is aligned with Schiff and Nadler, all three birds of the same feather." He means three Jews. "How can so few have so much influence and do so much damage to this republic? They take it upon themselves, the need for social change, and then are savvy enough to try to implement it. And you still wonder? It's a good job the vast majority of the American people never catch on to this sort of cabal." Okay, so that is from somebody who listens to this show and regularly sends me crap. But I make no mistake, everything he says here, cabal, Jews, birds of a feather, savvy enough, influence, so few, how much damage, how can it be, blah, 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 never catch on, blah, blah, blah. This is classic deadly anti-Semitism. Just want you to know. And as Angela Merkel said, they're out, they're dangerous, and they're uninhibited now. And that is a direct result of the Republicans and Donald Trump. All right, Lashana Tova. Happy New Year. And I'll be back on Monday. Be well.
Lynn Cullen Live, Monday through Friday from 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. and archived at pghcitypaper.com. The opinions expressed on Lynn Cullen Live are those of the host and do not necessarily reflect the viewpoints of Pittsburgh City Paper or its advertisers.